Now, the president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir. Last March, he was indicted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Darfur. Last week, he was interviewed in the capital of Khartoum. That interview was a collaboration between the NewsHour and Time magazine. NewsHour correspondent Simon Marks narrates our report.
This is after the signing of Abuja.
He is one of the world's most wanted men. The president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, risks arrest by order of the International Criminal Court based in The Hague if he travels outside his own country's borders. But in Khartoum last week, he told Time magazine's Sam Dealey the restrictions on his movement are no big deal.
Up until now, I haven't felt restrictions on my movement. I am not a Minister of Foreign Affairs where I am supposed to travel frequently to other countries, conferences and meetings. The President has his deputies, assistants and his specialized ministers, so it's not necessary for a President to travel to every country. But I have made all necessary travels.
In fact, as soon as he made history, becoming the first sitting president of a country to face an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court, he hit the road. He's visited friendly countries, including Zimbabwe and Ethiopia, participated in the Hajj in Saudi Arabia, and attended an Arab League summit in Qatar. Last month, the African Union declared its member states would not enforce the ICC's arrest warrant. The charges President al-Bashir faces, war crimes and crimes against humanity, relate to atrocities committed in the Sudanese region of Darfur over the last 6 years. There, the United Nations and non-governmental organizations estimate more than 250,000 people have died, and at least 2.5 million have been displaced in a conflict that pits predominantly African rebel groups against the Arab-dominated government and its allied militias. President al-Bashir told us he rejects the numbers.
Do you still maintain that only 10,000 have died in Darfur?
This is what we believe the number to be according to all the events that have taken place in Darfur.
And he also rejects the International Criminal Court itself, which was founded by international statute in 2002.
The International Criminal Court is a political court, not a court of justice.
Do you believe the ICC is an illegitimate organization?
We think that the ICC is a tool to terrorize countries that the West thinks are disobedient. The African position today, by consensus, is not to cooperate with this court, and it has reached a conclusion that this court is directed against the countries of the Third World and a tool of neo-colonialism.
As soon as visitors to Khartoum drive out of the airport, they are now greeted by posters lauding the achievements of President al-Bashir in 3 different languages and lambasting the ICC prosecutor Luis Moreno Ocampo, who has built the case against the Sudanese leader. That case claims that as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, al-Bashir masterminded and implemented a plan to destroy in substantial part 3 ethnic groups in Darfur. It alleges he personally directed a campaign of rape, torture and inhuman and degrading treatment and forcible displacement. He's accused of being in full control of all branches of the apparatus of Sudan's government. Control, the prosecutor concludes, was not only formal, it was absolute. The president proffers a different view.
To what degree do you control the apparatus of the government?
There is a wide delegation of powers. It is not possible for a president in a country like Sudan, the size of Sudan, with the immense problems of Sudan, to administer and manage everything. For example, the US Air Force in Afghanistan mistakenly bombed a wedding and killed 147 civilians. But you can't say that the US president should be tried for this, because he is the commander-in-chief of US forces. In the US, not even the chiefs of staff would be put on trial. But if it was proven that the field commander that ordered this operation made this decision without confirming whether this was a gathering of civilians or combatants, then he is the one to be held responsible, and the law is clear on this. The law holds accountable those who break it, and we've conducted trials.
How many cases have been prosecuted?
I don't recall exactly, but I do recall that we stripped the immunity from one member of the National Security Forces. He was put on trial, was convicted and executed. There are a number of other examples that I do not recall at the moment, because the trials take place there, on the ground.
The Sudanese government has long blamed the crisis in Darfur on fractious rebel groups with divergent aims and ambitions backed by some of the country's regional opponents. The United Nations and the International Criminal Court accuse President al-Bashir of concealing his crimes by diverting blame.
A rebellion happened there from a small group, and any attempt to picture the militants as representatives of the people of Darfur is a big mistake. You will find in all the world's countries that militants who take up arms against a government are classified as terrorists. Even those who resist occupation in Iraq, Afghanistan and Palestine are classified today as terrorists. Except in Sudan, when some people take up arms, it's the government that's guilty.
So there are no actions specifically, though, which you feel, in retrospect, were mistakes?
In any war, mistakes happen on the ground. This is not the policy of the government. We are a government that functions in accordance with the law. The security apparatus functions in accordance with the law. Whoever intentionally breaks the law is held accountable to it.
Have you ever met Mr. Obama or spoken with him?
No.
President al-Bashir's decision to grant a high-profile U.S. media interview, his first since he was indicted, comes as the Obama administration is reassessing a comprehensive range of punitive measures in place government. The U.S., which under the Bush administration branded the crisis in Darfur a genocide, now says the worst of the violence there has ended. Major General Scott Gratian is President Obama's special envoy to Sudan.
There's a significant difference between what happened in 2004 and 2003, which we characterize as genocide, and what is happening today. We are working very hard to make sure that we can close the gap, though, and end that violence.